Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the 7 causes of adrenal fatigue. Now, what are the adrenal glands? They are 2 little glands on top of your kidney, deep inside right here. They're little triangles right here. And they have an outside, they have an inside, and we're going to be talking about the hormones in the outside primarily, especially cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and a short amount of stress is good for you. And there's a concept called hormesis. I've done videos on that. I'll put a link down below. But what that's all about is adding a small amount of stress to get your body to compensate and become stronger, like intermittent exercise, intermittent fasting. There's even intermittent hypoxia, where you're wearing something on your mouth to obstruct oxygen, or exercising in mountaintop high altitudes to lower the oxygen, or, for example, taking a cold shower or a hot shower, anything to stress your body on a temporary basis, then trigger certain genes to kick in to make your body stronger. But with the adrenal fatigue, it's always the chronic exposure to certain stresses that breaks it down. Now, when you have too much cortisol, you develop something called cortisol resistance, where it's similar to insulin resistance. So the cortisol doesn't really work anymore. So you have the symptoms of high cortisol in certain parts of the body and symptoms of low cortisol in other parts. So you have inflammation, you have belly fat, your immune system is weakened, you have low vitamin D, your legs start getting thinner because the adrenals are destroying your protein and turning that into fat and putting it around your gut. You're developing diabetes because your body is breaking down the protein and turning that into glucose. So it's a big problem. So the biggest symptom of adrenal fatigue that we're talking about is fatigue, right? And inability to sleep, feeling run down, not being able to rejuvenate. So let's talk about the big triggers of adrenal fatigue. The first one, and probably the most important one, is a chronic lack of sleep. So you're going for many, many years not sleeping, whether through some type of, let's say you're in medical school and you're doing a residency and you're working third shift, or you're in the military like I was in basic training, where you're not sleeping for a long period of time. Or let's say, for example, you're pregnant and you just can't sleep, or you have a baby and you have to breastfeed. Now, it's the sleep that helps to rejuvenate your adrenals. And an average person needs about 7 hours of sleep on average. Sometimes they can get by with 6.5. Sometimes they need 8. But the more the adrenals are broken down, the more sleep you will need. Now, there's a great video I did on acupressure. I put a link down below, and it's a stress webinar. I highly suggest you watch that and you start applying that. I show you how to extract stress from your body so you can sleep like a baby. So the lack of sleep is probably the number one thing that really will cause adrenal fatigue, because let's say you're under massive stress and you're going through all these things. If you're sleeping, you're able to cope with it. So this is number one. Number two, chronic consumption of high amounts of coffee or caffeine from either chocolate or tea. Now, I am a textbook example of this. In college, I drank massive amounts of coffee and ate very poorly, and I developed adrenal fatigue in my 20s. But what this is going to do, it's going to deplete you of vitamin B1, calcium, and potassium. All 3 of these are essential to help support healthy adrenals. Okay, so cut it down to 1 cup a day if you can. But the chronic consumption of too much coffee is definitely at the top of the list, and a lot of people are in that boat. But that's, of course, why they smoke, to have the nicotine to calm them down from that caffeine jittery experience. All right, number 3, no exercise. Exercise is a way to keep the stress off your body. If you're not exercising, the stress is going to build up. One of the best exercises for stress is walking and long walks. I personally, in the winter, I can't ride my bike because it's too snowy and there's ice. So I go on long walks. So I'll walk for about 45 minutes to an hour, and you're basically keeping your heart rate low and you're getting a lot of oxygen, and it's a great stress relief. And I always sleep better when I do that. All right, number 4, chronic stress in general. If you're in a situation that you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, or you're under constant stress, whether it's your marriage or your work or whatever, that will burn out the adrenals. Or if you had a sudden shock, a loss of a loved one, a sudden traumatic experience. Like some people get hit by a car, when they're walking across the street, and then they end up in the hospital. That's a stress to the adrenal. Or let's say you had surgery. That is a shock to the adrenals. So one example with myself is that I was riding my bike, and suddenly there was a malfunction with the bike, and I went over the handlebars, okay, on the cement. Now, in your mind, you always think that you can just tuck and roll out of it. Well, it happened so fast that all I can do was turn my face to the right and landed right on this cheekbone, fractured the cheekbone, thought I knocked a tooth out, and then I looked down and my entire arm is dangling. I fractured the elbow, had to go into surgery, had 30 screws. That was a shock to my body, and I had to really work on my adrenals to overcome that shock. Okay, number 5, low amount of nutrients. These are the key nutrients for your adrenals. Vitamin C. You need vitamin C to make adrenal hormones. In fact, out of all the organs and glands in the body, the adrenal glands store the most vitamin C. So vitamin C is very, very necessary. Now, where do you get vitamin C? From vegetables, okay? Leafy greens. Very, very important. B1, essential for your adrenals, and nutritional yeast will give you that. But more importantly, it's the foods that deplete B1, and that would be the refined carbs. And I'm definitely talking about sugar, and I'm talking about grains, okay? Flour, things like that. And then we have zinc, very important with the adrenals. When you consume grains, it has something called phytic acid, which blocks zinc. When you have low stomach acid in your stomach, it's not going to allow you to absorb zinc. When you consume refined carbohydrates or even drink alcohol, the zinc will go down and the adrenals will not work that well. And then we get into magnesium. Magnesium is essential for so many things, especially for the adrenals. It'll help you sleep. It helps you feel calm. And you would get that in these things called vegetables. The molecule of magnesium is at the heart of chlorophyll, the green stuff in the greens. Then you have potassium, okay? You're going to get that in vegetables as well. Potassium is very, very important in muscle relaxation and calming down the nervous system and keeping the heart rate nice and regulated. When you're deficient in potassium, your heart rate goes higher and higher and higher. Then you have vitamin D, which is really like a hormone more than a vitamin, and it acts like cortisol in the body, and it's really good for a stressed out body. So it will definitely help the adrenal. In fact, when the adrenal glands are burnt out, the person usually always has low vitamin D. So adding more vitamin D, especially getting out in the sun, can help calm the adrenals down. So the things that deplete these nutrients are refined carbs, sugars, alcohol will definitely do it. No veggies, no sun, low stomach acids, and phytic acid from the grains. All right, another thing is number 6, chronic pain and inflammation. If you had an injury, if you just have some chronic inflammatory condition, whether it's autoimmune or arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, that can just wear your adrenals right down. Some of the best things to do for that is do intermittent fasting. The combination between intermittent fasting and vitamin D is essential for inflammation. But I have a lot of videos on how to get rid of pain in your body. It's a do-it-yourself version. So all you have to do is type in Dr. Berg and the body part, whether it's ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, and I give you techniques on that. But getting rid of that pain can take a lot of stress off the adrenals. And it's very similar to closing down the application on that desktop. Now it frees up the speed at which your computer can work and also your body can work. Lastly, we have chronic infection, okay? So let's say you had a virus long ago. That virus can be reactivated during stress and really wear out the adrenal, especially viruses and also bacteria and even funguses. But the Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus are very, very common in adrenal fatigue. But the most common is TB, that bacteria. This really can destroy the adrenals. A good remedy would be oregano oil. You take it on a regular basis. It's like a natural antibacterial that can help clean the body. And ozone therapy. I really love this type of therapy because it can actually clean out things. You could probably find a place locally in your area that does it. It is involved with an IV and taking some blood out, putting ozone, and then putting it back through you. I actually had this done. I love it, and it really works for hidden infections and getting your energy way up because it works on a systemic basis. When you go through menopause, okay, the adrenal glands have to now back up the ovaries. And you may have a lot more stress and more issues after menopause than before menopause because of that fact. And I would recommend watching the acupressure video. It's called the Adrenal Stress Webinar. Watch that. That can really help you. And there's a couple products that I have, and I would use those in combination. One is adrenal cortisol relief, and the other is adrenal stress advanced formula. I would use those together, and I put a link down below for more information on that. Now, also, if you've taken prednisone in the past, this is a synthetic version of cortisone, and taking this can weaken your adrenals because your adrenal glands don't have to produce that hormone anymore. So the chronic prescription of prednisone over time can weaken your adrenals. All right, guys, there you have it, the 7 causes of adrenal fatigue. So if you want more knowledge on how to create a healthy body, subscribe now and get daily notifications.